come back to sort of the situation on the ground in Lebanon. So obviously these American citizens seeking the flights out, they're being caused to flee by these Israeli actions. You've talked about what the Israelis have said to the US about limited incursions into southern Lebanon. But we've sort of seen there is a ground operation, and there's also an aerial operation with a lot of bombing going on in Beirut. How do you kind of characterize what Israel is doing? Is this a full-scale war against Lebanon as a state? It seems to be broader than just these limited incursions and targeted bombings to take out Hezbollah leaders.
So they continue to target Hezbollah leaders and target Hezbollah officials and Hezbollah militants, and all of their strikes, at least as far as we are aware, and if there are strikes of targeting other officials inside Lebanon, we'd certainly welcome that information. But nothing that we have seen as of yet leads us to conclude that they are doing anything other than targeting a terrorist organization, Hezbollah, that had launched strikes and was continuing to launch strikes against Israel, including in the last few days.
So everything that the Israeli, all the elements of the Israeli operation within what you just said those have the green light from the US. Like, we're okay with this. This doesn't go beyond, I guess, red lines is not a word we like to use.
It's not to speak to any one individual strike, because it is not like we are sitting and approving individual strikes, but we do approve of the Israeli government defending itself and defending its people from a terrorist organization that has continued to, that began this conflict with them on October 8th, forced tens of thousands of people to flee their homes, also has been a destabilizing force in Lebanon. We do support them taking military action to bring those terrorists to justice.
But the position last week when you were calling for a 3-week ceasefire is that there's no longer a call for a ceasefire?
We do ultimately want to see a ceasefire and a diplomatic resolution, but we do think it's appropriate that Israel at this point is bringing terrorists to justice and trying to push and launching these limited incursions, what at least at this point are limited incursions, to try and push Hezbollah back from the border.
But this is having the impact of sending civilians who have no connection to Hezbollah, Americans, to leave. So, don't you have a little more concern that this is the escalatory action that you were warning against?
We are, of course, absolutely concerned about the humanitarian effects of this conflict. We are concerned about the effects on American citizens, thousands of whom live in Lebanon. We are concerned about the effects on innocent Lebanese civilians who live in Lebanon and are now caught in the middle of a conflict that they had nothing to do with. It's why we are ultimately working for a diplomatic resolution, something that we had been working to for some time. It's why we're continuing to support humanitarian assistance for the Lebanese people. It's why we're organizing the Ways to Depart Lebanon that I spoke to at the beginning of this briefing. But ultimately, you do have a security situation that was untenable for Israel. And by the way, it's a security situation that was untenable for Lebanese civilians in southern Lebanon who had been forced to flee their homes too. So Israel at this point has launched what they have described, and we're going to watch and see, but what they have described as limited incursions across the border to try and push Hezbollah back so 1701 can ultimately be implemented. We're going to see how that unfolds over the coming days. Ultimately, our goal is a diplomatic resolution, and where we want to see this go is UN Security Council 1701, which was adopted some years ago and has never been fully implemented, so you have security on both sides of the border and the ability for Lebanese and Israeli civilians to return to their homes.
But you talk about a diplomatic solution, but what's going on at the moment is a war, right? How long is Israel does Israel need to continue those operations, or how long is it okay for them to keep this kind of level of attacks?
So a conflict is by its nature dynamic, and I think it's impossible to know and it's impossible to predict what the outcome of the fighting that's going on in southern Lebanon is going to be over the next few days. I can tell you that all of us here are very cognizant of the long history of Israel launching what at the time were described as limited operations across the Lebanese border that have turned into something much different, that have turned into full-scale wars and then at times occupation. And we're going to continue to work. We're going to watch what happens over the next few days. And ultimately, our position has not changed, which we want to see a diplomatic resolution, but But we do want to see Hezbollah's capabilities degraded.
Do they have an end game? Do the Israelis have an end game? In your view?
The Israelis will have to speak to that question, not me.
When you say the next few days,
Go ahead.
Matt, do you indicate that the U.S. believes that these incursions into Southern Lebanon will be finished in the next few days?
No, I'm not
Or are you
speaking.
saying-
I'm not speaking to that at all. My next briefing is on Monday. I'm happy to come back and take the question on Monday. But look, we're watching this. We are watching this. It goes to the point I was making in answer to Simon's question, which is they have described these as limited incursions across the border with very targeted objectives, which is to clear out Hezbollah infrastructure. But so that's how they've described it. That's what we're watching happening right now. But we're also very aware of the long history of limited operations turning into something else. I'm not going to prejudge what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. I dare say the Israelis probably don't know what's going to happen at this point. We're going to watch. Saeed, hold on, relax. We're going to watch as this unfolds, and we'll make our assessments as in real time as they occur.
And you guys doesn't know how long this will take?
I don't think if you asked Israel, they could tell you how long. It is the nature of a conflict that it is dynamic, right? Hold on, listen to me. Unpredictable things happen in conflicts. The enemy responds in a way oftentimes that you don't expect. This isn't to prejudge any possible outcome. It's just to say it's a fluid and dynamic situation. And I think all of us ought to be cautious in pretending to say that we know exactly how it's going to roll out.
In the case of Gaza, which was not that long ago, Matt, you were pressing the Israelis to articulate a plan or a vision for governance for what comes next. Are you doing that the same in the north?
We are having very detailed conversations with them about that. I would never read my unwillingness to talk about those conversations publicly to mean that we are not having them privately.
Just to follow, you said that maybe the Israelis don't know what's going to happen. Is it okay for
No.
a country with US
That's-
using
so
US weapons to go into a conflict
you
with
are,
no
you are
way out?
completely misinterpreting what I'm saying. When I say that they cannot know what's going to happen, the point is that oftentimes when you begin a conflict, you do not know how it's going to go. It's not to say they don't have a plan. It's not to say that they don't have objectives. It's to say that conflicts are unpredictable, and the enemy does things that you don't predict. It is impossible to predict with a complete degree of uncertainty or to complete degree of certainty how it will unfold. That's what I meant.
So can we,
Yeah,
can
Heba,
we
go ahead.
follow up?
Go, guys. I know, but like all of you have your hands up. I'm going to call on you one at a time. Go ahead, Heba.
Yes, Matt. So till now, you still see it as a limited operation in the south.
That's what they're conducting at this time. And again, as I said, that's not to make any predictions about what will happen, but that's what we assess is happening as it stands.